guys! So today I'm going to talk to you about college. I constantly get that question or that request just like asking me to talk about my experience at college or at university and like to give advice about entering university, but my experience was quite different, I guess, the way it started. So let's get a move on, shall we? When I was a senior in high school, I've mentioned this before, I got really sick. And so for me, applying to colleges was a lot different because all we really needed to care about at the time was that I was going to get in and that it wasn't going to be very far away from home because I still had to go to the doctor once a month. So when I applied to St. Martin's University, a little tiny Catholic college about 45 minutes away from my house, it was kind of on a whim, but I knew that I could transfer if I didn't like it. And I got in within a week. They gave me a pretty generous scholarship, so I ended up paying the same amount that I would have as if I'd gone to a public school. So St. Martin's is where I started my college education, and I hated it. Oh, I did not belong there at all. It was like 2 months into that year and I was like, okay, I can't stay here. Like, it was a Catholic college and I wasn't Catholic, but that wasn't the problem. I was rooming with a friend I had from high school, so that didn't work out naturally. We had a bit of a crazy falling out in the middle of the year, which ended up being better in the long run because we were a really toxic relationship. Like, she was not a good friend to me and we don't talk anymore. So it ended up working out, but it just ended really like it blew up. Like, I did get to call her a cunt. Like, that was pretty cool. I ended up getting like a really cute Japanese exchange student roommate living with me the second half of the year, which ended up actually a lot better because she wasn't in the room all the time, so I was by myself a lot more, which I needed. And how I figured out why I needed to leave so quickly was that A, they didn't have the classes that I needed or that I wanted to take. If I would have stayed there, I would have been taking all these classes as an English major, and I like reading, but not that much. I took the only 2 journalism classes they had at the entire school the first year I was there. And they didn't have a student newspaper, and I was more knowledgeable about like student journalism than anybody else there, including the professors, so I was like, I need to leave, like I need to go. About halfway through the year, I started applying to schools to transfer. And I got into Western, which I probably would have enjoyed, but I really didn't want to make my parents pay for me to live there. And I still had to go to the doctor once a month, so it was, I mean, it was like 3 hours away, so it wasn't that convenient. But I also got into UW-Tacoma, which I decided on attending, and I ended up there for the next 3 years. And I graduated from UW-Tacoma, and I loved it. It ended up working out in my favor because I was able to live at home, still to go to the doctor as much as I could, and sometimes I would only have classes like twice a week because I was only taking 3 classes since it was a quarter system as opposed to a semester system, which I hate. The pros for the quarter system far outweigh the pros of the semester system, I'm telling you. If you don't like taking a ton of classes at once, just do quarters, because you only take 3 at a time at the most to have a full load. But I started out at UW-Tacoma, and right off the bat, I joined the student newspaper, like, right away. I was on my high school newspaper for 3 years, and then I spent a year of not doing student publications, and I was really itching to get my hands on some InDesign, on some Photoshop, just like back in that environment, because that was kind of like my kryptonite. I was like, I need this environment to like function. So I joined the student newspaper as a page designer, and then the next year I was still a page designer, but I worked my way up into photographer. And then my senior year, I was editor-in-chief of my college paper, which was the best learning experience anybody can ever have, because it's totally different from high school. I was in charge of a staff of like 15 people, ranging from age 18 to like 50. If you are somebody who likes to get involved but not actually do a lot of stuff, like, join the student newspaper, because it was kind of an excuse for me to not actually get involved in any other organizations, because as a journalist, it's kind of your job to stay detached and just like observe everything from the outside. The student organizations were so high school for me. Like, there was actually a point my senior year I wrote an article that made everybody hate me. I wrote a story about how all of the like promotional material and like everything about the other student organizations, like student government and like activities board and everything, it was very like exclusive, and they always showed the same people in like the promotional material, so it wasn't giving like a full view of like our student body. And when I published that, like, everybody went apeshit, because apparently nobody knew that the job of the newspaper was to not, like, promote events and the other organizations. Like, we were not a newsletter, and nobody knew that. I basically walked around for a week feeling like Harriet the Spy after all of her classmates found her notebook and read everything. It was actually kind of awesome because it gave me an excuse not to talk to those people because I didn't like them. If you're at all just like creatively inclined, like photography, graphic design, advertising, editing, writing, anything can be applied to the student paper, because so many people just assume that when you join the newspaper that you're always writing news stories. I wrote like one news story over the course of 3 years. So you're not always just like going to things and writing boring things and interviewing people, and there's a lot that goes into it. And that was pretty much like all I did like my whole time at UW-T, apart from like classes. And as far as my classes go, I was in the program Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, which is as vague as you can get. I know, right? And most of the classes I took had to do with like communication in the media and like news and feature writing, and I kind of stayed in my vein. But I did take some classes, like I had to take a science class, so I took Earth History, which is basically just rocks. Because I took most of my like boring prerequisite classes at St. Martin's. So I was able to avoid all of that at UW-T and take the classes that I actually wanted to take. I took a lot of film classes, I took some TV studies classes, I took some advertising classes, not how to do advertising, but how to like read advertising, which was interesting. But probably my two favorite classes that I took at school were ethics in the media and political economy, which both sound like a snore, right? But I took ethics in the media because I had already taken a class with that professor and I really liked her, so I wanted to take that class. And it ended up being really, really valuable and really fascinating because it kind of had to do with just like morals and like everything that you put towards just like reading media and understanding how decisions are made. And it was a really, really great class, and I strongly suggest everybody taking some sort of ethics class. And then my other favorite class, political economy, basically, it sounds like everything boring. Political economy was all about understanding the ownership of the media that we consume and how that affects what we consume. Like the fact that Rupert Murdoch owns like 1/5 of all of the Earth's media conglomerate stuff affects what we do and do not receive from Fox News. So that's a thing that I learned, and it's kind of mind-blowing. And I feel like it should be a required class for everybody because you are constantly surrounded by the media. So even if you're not in like in a communications media vein, take that class as an elective because you're surrounded by it all the time. I mean, my experience wasn't that crazy. Like I lived at home, but while I lived at home for most of my college career, I'm really happy that I took that year to go live in a dorm because I feel like it's a rite of passage that everybody has to take in like moving away and like being on your own for at least a year. Like, unless it's totally financially impossible, go live at school for a year, like, or live in an apartment. Live away from your family for a year because you learn a lot about yourself and what you want and do not want in your life and what you can and cannot live with. So when you live in the dorms, do the dorm thing. Like, experience dorm life, because if you're not gonna experience that, you might as well live at home. I'm not saying you need to like go get drunk and like go to frat parties all the time. My school at UW-Tacoma, we didn't have any sports teams because it was a commuter campus, but I never went to a Husky game. I was like the worst Husky ever. So if you live at a big campus where they have a lot of events and like sports stuff, go to the sports games. And then as far as like classes to take, get your required shit done, but take some classes where you literally have no idea what it's about, but like maybe if you like that professor but you aren't that interested in the subject, just take it because you like the professor. Because when I took political economy, I was not at all interested in what it sounded like. It sounded like really boring and terrible, but one of my really good friends took it and she told me that it was one of her favorite classes, and I liked the professor that was teaching it, so I'm like, I'll take it, and it ended up being one of my favorite classes. University was a thing that I'm glad that I got to do and that I got to finish. And I'm glad that I lived at home at the time, but now I really regret not traveling and not like going places more. If you can financially do that, stay away from home for as long as you're in college. Take out student loans as much as you think you can handle. I was lucky enough to have my parents pay for my college education, and my dad took out a really small loan for me just so I could have the experience of like building credit and paying back a loan. If you can afford to live away from home, do it. I regret not doing it the last 3 years. I regret that I still live at home, and I regret that I haven't gone to more places that I want to go to. And I made the decision today that in the next year that I am gonna go to the UK. I've been telling myself this for 4 years, that I'm gonna go to the UK, and I gave myself a deadline of 2015, and I'm gonna do it this year. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. But for those of you who are still in high school, one piece of advice, take as many AP classes as you can now. It can take care of so many credits when you get to college, it's kind of crazy. Like if you take enough now, you could probably graduate like a quarter or two early. If you take enough now and you have some extra credits, if you fail classes in college, it gives you a little bit of a like safety net that you can take classes to make up for it, so you don't have to go to school for like an extra quarter if you do end up failing classes. So if you have any more questions about university, applying to schools, dorm life, my dorm life was a little bit weird, leave them in the comments. I can always answer little things. And then today's song of the day, oh god, today's song of the day is Make It Easy by We Are Scientists, because TV en Francais came out on Monday or Tuesday, I don't know, but I've been listening to the whole thing constantly for a week, and the vinyl should be here in 2 days, and I love this album more than the last one. This album's really, really good, and I'm really excited to see them in May. Oh, so go check out that song, Make It Easy. You can get clips of all of the songs on their SoundCloud, which is on their website, but I'll put a link to that below too, so you can listen to little tidbits of every song. College advice. Apparently I have authority on that because I'm older and have finished college. I hope that was helpful in some way, shape, or form. Basically, the biggest piece of advice I can give people is join the student newspaper. Yeah, I will see you guys on Saturday. Yeah, bye.